How's Mary?
When you're ready, I'm ready.
No procedures coming up?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's all right. I'm not going to bother.
Madam Mayor, it's 6 o'clock. It's 6:01.
If everyone would please find their seats.
I'm not doing that again. She tells you to get your seat, and then she tells you to stand up.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, June 18th, regular City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triola.
Here.
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Amari Hardy.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you very much.
If everyone would please rise for an invocation on behalf of Commissioner Hardy.
Lord, you brought us into this building safely. We ask you that you give us the ability to think about the things that are most important in our community, the people that are most important in our community, and that you give us the ability and the cool heads to deliberate here in the best interest of all in this city. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
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 Vice Mayor Pro Tem, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all so much for coming. Let's see, do we have any additions, deletions, or reordering?
Madam Mayor, we did add a discussion item seeking direction on how commissioners place items on the agenda. It's under new business, item B.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Seconded.
Moved by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Hardy. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Oh,
Sorry.
I withdraw my second.
Well, are we down to consent yet?
Hold on a second. We've got a motion on the floor.
I withdraw my second.
You withdrew your second. We've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I would like to pull the transfer of development rights and the LED light.
Well, I'd have to ask the person who made the motion that's currently on the floor. Would you like to remove that so another item could be added, or should the motion stand as is?
Are we looking to add something?
We're moving something from a consent agenda. It's been requested by Commissioner Robinson. One item.
Two items.
Two items, I'm sorry.
What was the second item?
Just for information for a constituent for the LED lights. Should take no more than 3 seconds.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so we're gonna change then, we've got that item, first that was offered
C
by
and
the city clerk, and then C and
H. Like Henry.
moving them to, let me see, C and H, purchase was all the rest. Moves to new business C and D.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Hardy. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our presentations. We have a very special guest with us here this evening. A post-legislative update from Representative Michael Caruso. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Triola. And commissioners, good evening. How are you?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good. And residents of Lake Worth, beautiful city. How are you tonight?
Beach.
Beach.
Lake Worth Beach. And what a great idea. And I commend you for that. That is a big move, and I think that should do well for the city. Let's see, legislative update. I appreciate the opportunity to bring it to you. You know, I got elected back in November, and that was a Sunday when I was told I won the election after the recount, and I didn't get back from Tallahassee till May. So I've been gone a long time. It's nice to be home. So I thank you for letting me be here today. The one thing that we are mandated to do under the Constitution of the state of Florida is to pass a budget, and we did. We passed a balanced budget of $91.1 billion, and thank God it was a balanced budget. And we actually even set aside $3.5 billion in the reserves, bringing our savings account in the state of Florida up to $8 billion. And because of things like that and our credit rating, we are the strongest state in the country right now. So be proud of that, Floridians. if you followed the governor, DeSantis, he stressed three things: healthcare, environment, and education. And our budget really reflects that. We allocated $37.7 billion towards healthcare, which included $598 million full funding for Florida Kid Care enrollment. I thought that was a great thing to have done. It's something that's needed throughout our communities in Palm Beach County here. We allocated when it comes to education, we allocated $16.2 billion for K through 12 education, which is a $243 per student increase over last year. And to give you a little relativity there, last year we increased our per student funding by about $40. The year before that, we did not increase it at all. So $243 increase in 1 year is a big step in the right direction. We're not there yet, I agree. And I'll admit that. And I think if we do another $243 next session, we will be getting close to where we really need to be for our funding of our children in school. Let's see, that turned out to be about an $800 million increase in the school budget. K through, higher education, we allocated $8.25 billion into higher education. And another thing to be proud of, Florida schools are ranked, colleges and universities are ranked for the third time by U.S. News as the #1 schools in the country. And that's a great honor, and we've got some great schools, and it's because our school system has been prioritizing affordability and a pathway to careers over the last few years. We put the stress on that, the emphasis on that. We're no longer sending kids to college to just get a degree and walk away with a bunch of debt. We're sending them to college with the purpose of getting them into a career within 6 months after graduating. And that's our goal. And in fact, our state metrics for, I call it bonuses for the school system, includes a metrics based on how many students get into a full-time career job based on their undergraduate or graduate training within a 6-month period. So we're good at that. And the way that's been happening is through internship programs that the universities are setting up with the businesses in the state and their communities. And also through the vocational training, such as Palm Beach State College here, vocational training of students. One of my sons is going to Palm Beach State. He just enrolled in Palm Beach State College for a 20-month program to get his HVAC license. And when he gets out, they say you will get a job. You will have a line of companies lined up to offer you $65,000 a year in the HVAC industry. So that's what we're doing in our university and college system now, and it's a great thing. The environment, we allocated billions towards the environment this year with $680 million for Everglades restoration. The one thing that I heard about day one in Tallahassee was day one, they sat us down and had a meeting. Well, every representative throughout the state was water, water, water. How are we going to clean up our water? And that's what they wanted us all focused on. And so they allocated $680 million for the Everglades restoration, $33 million for Florida Forever, and $4.2 million for Red Tide research. I was happy to also see that they allocated $50 million towards beach renourishment. Most of those funds, however, because of Hurricane Michael, went to the Panhandle, those funds. And I looked long and hard to work hard on and with you to get an appropriation for our beaches here in Palm Beach County. What else? In terms of the economy and business side of things, we allocated $50 million to Visit Florida Again, $40 million into the Job Growth Grant Fund, and $16 million into Enterprise Florida, encouraging businesses to come down to the state of Florida from other states and other places throughout the world. And then, of course, we funded libraries at $21 million and the arts at $23 million. Another thing that you might be interested in that it does affect us right here in Lake Worth is we didn't raid the Sadowski Fund like in the past years. They raid it every year, take all $400,000 out of it, and this year we left $275 million in there. which is good, and that money should be coming down to Lake Worth and also. $15 billion went to transportation and tourism. District 89, which runs from Boca Raton to Singer Island, along the East Coast here, along the coastline rather. I was able to bring home $42.5 million of appropriations. I was proud and honored to have been able to do that. Fought hard for a lot of appropriations. I know we were fighting for one for Lake Worth. Like, I thought I sold my soul, so I'm standing here soulless. I don't know what more I could give on that one.
We'll be back.
It was in the budget, then it was out of the budget. It was kind of the hokey pokey of appropriations.
We turned ourselves around and it wasn't there.
And when the last second it was gone, like poof. And we will be working hard to get that again, and I think it's a great project, and we will work hard towards that. Otherwise, money went towards the FAU Henderson School to rebuild that school. Fortunately or unfortunately, during session, the roof caved in, and how could they say no to that appropriation? You know, it's a 60-year-old school, and it was literally falling down. So we got that, and they'd been trying to get that for years, and then we had $2 million for an Alzheimer's program, $300,000 towards an after-school care program for kids, and many other appropriations. We had a tax package. We passed a tax bill saving you $121 million. Which is no, you know, you start saving 121 million here, 121 million there, pretty soon it adds up to some real money. We included a hurricane preparedness tax holiday, and I just had a neighbor buy a generator for the home in anticipation of hurricanes, and she saved $54 on sales tax because of the holiday. And then we have a back to school supply sales tax holiday. Everybody should take advantage of that, you know, for the upcoming school season. And we cut commercial lease sales tax from 5.7% to 5.5%. I had a bill to eliminate it for small businesses, but we couldn't put a thumb on a number of the impact it would have on the fiscal budget. We are working hard with Department of Revenue this year, and we are going to come up with a number by August. And once we have that, leadership is behind that, and we should be able to just totally eliminate the that sales tax for commercial leases. We're the only state in the country that taxes commercial leases. So if we can get rid of that, and you know, that'll be great. I had two bills that I was honored to have written and passed. One was they call it the anti-Semitism bill. Basically what it does is it makes it against the law to discriminate in the K through 20 system based on religion. Just like you wouldn't discriminate based on race, like you wouldn't on gender. You can no longer discriminate based on religion. So I was proud to have sponsored that one and worked that through the system, got it passed. And then the last bill I passed was a sober home bill. And it allowed for more peer specialists to be licensed, which helps those trying to fight addiction. And it gave the task force more tools to go after the illegal practice of patient brokering. So I was excited about that. And hopefully the governor will come down to Lake Worth, down here somewhere, and we'll sign that bill. We're working with his office now to try to do that, and hope that happens soon. So that's. I heard the buzzer go off.
And I know you have you can continue, please.
But I can open it up for questions. I've got there's so many things I could go into.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you so much. I know we were running down the halls quite a bit and knocking on your door quite frequently with our requests. So I want to thank you on behalf of, I'm sure, all of us that have been to Tallahassee for you put more energy and time into having our stories told, and than probably anyone else that I've ever worked with in this capacity.
Thank you.
And I'm very, very grateful for that. Just knowing that you're on our side really is important to us. So we'll be back in the trenches with you next time.
I look forward to it.
Commissioner
I look
Hardy.
forward to it.
And again, I will echo Madam Mayor's thank yous for representing us as well as you do, and with the amount of vigor and energy that you do up there in Tallahassee. That's unbelievable, and we appreciate that. I think we all do. Two two issues that affect Lake Worth that have to do with education. And if you could use your influence in the legislature to get some movement on this, it could really, really help the city, and it could help many, many other cities because we're all dealing with the same thing. So in Lake Worth, 3 out of our 4 elementary schools, less than 25% of the kids at those 3 elementary schools are ready for kindergarten. And that has to do with VPK, right? So there's a test that's given to kids who are going into kindergarten that assesses their readiness. Less than 25% of them are ready at 3 out of these 4 elementary schools. And part of that is there's not the access to VPK, and that directly has to do with funding. So there are really 2 access issues. It's dollars. The dollars fund the seats, but the dollars also fund the hours. So in the state of Florida, if you want to send your kid to VPK, you have 2 options. You can send them for the entire school year for the entire day, or you can send them for, you can send them for the entire school year for half the day, or you can send them for half the school year for the entire day. And that doesn't work for a lot of working families. You know, a lot of working families are not able to drop their kid off at 9 in the morning and come pick them up at 12. And so for that reason, lots of people who really need to use VPK don't get their kids in the program, so then they're not ready for kindergarten. And you can draw a straight line from kindergarten readiness or lack thereof to 3rd grade reading and math scores.
Absolutely.
So-
and you can draw the 3rd grade reading line to our criminal system.
Bingo. And many, many other life chances. So if we can, for the entire state, and it would help us, funding, seats, hours, that would be very important. The other thing is eligibility. So if you are, for example, unemployed as a parent, you can't apply to get your kid into VPK. So in this situation, the child is being punished for the fact that the parent doesn't have a job. There's a work requirement, you see? So, and then the other thing is, in this community, we have a population, an undocumented population. And if you're undocumented as a parent, even if your child is a citizen, because they were born here, what have you, you as the parent can apply.
Cannot apply.
You cannot apply to get your kid into VPK. So that's an issue that I've heard from my people who work in the school district, and it's harming our ability to get our kids ready for schools. And just from the city's very selfish standpoint, we're worried about property values.
Right.
Right. And so if the scores reflect the school grades, and when you go on Zillow and you go to buy a home and you're looking at what's the school grade, right? So it all starts at VPK.
Well, Commissioner, I appreciate your insight on that problem, and I would love to work with you on a bill. Maybe around August to start drafting a bill. I get 6 slots, and there's nothing more important than our kids. So I would be happy to work with you to develop a bill and try to push it through the system.
I think
I'm sure
everyone
we
in
could
the
get
city,
bipartisan support for it
Yeah.
and everything. So it's a great
I think
idea.
everyone in the city would appreciate that. The other thing is, and I'm a teacher.
I was
Full
gonna say,
disclosure.
Okay.
Teacher.
I'm a 4th generation educator. So, but the other thing is teacher bonuses, and this affects Lake Worth because Lake Worth has schools that are a little more challenging, and where the movement as far as the school grades don't happen the way that they do in other schools that might have different demographics. So I applaud the governor, I applaud the legislature for moving away from the Best and Brightest program. They were paying teacher bonuses based on what they scored on the SAT when they were like 18, right? Which doesn't make much sense.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and now
And
it's
I'm sure you scored well. In that performance, but
I did okay. But now it's based in part on their performance as a teacher, which is great. But then the other part is the school overall has to move by, I think, 3 percentage points in a positive direction in order for the
That's right.
teacher to get the bonus. So I want you to imagine a situation where you have a really phenomenal teacher that's working at a school that's very challenging, and for different reasons, although this individual teacher might be doing well, the school doesn't move. And so that teacher is punished, not for the job that he or she didn't do, but for the school that he or she works at.
yeah, I'd like to see more power put into the hands of the principals of our schools.
Right.
To allocate bonuses.
Right.
To our teachers.
And our principals, they face enough challenges already. And if we can have our teachers on par with all the other teachers who teach at other schools that might be a little easier to work with, it would do a world of good for the city. So I appreciate the work that you do for us in Tallahassee. I can't wait to see you again next year and in between there. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. The education is kind of like it's an elephant that we have to eat, and you got to eat it one bite at a time, and we're not going to fix everything overnight. But
Right.
I'd love to work with you on that, on the ideas you had with regards to VBK and go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
And I too wanted to take a moment to thank you. I know as a freshman, it's not always easy, but you know, you went above and beyond for the city of Lake Worth and you know, Beach. And we got to see a lot of you, and we kept running into you, and you kept saying yes, yes, yes. So again, I look forward to being back with you again, and I know that you're an advocate for home rule. And you know, that's one of my big pet peeves. You know, no one knows the city better than us. And you know, I support you supporting us on our home rule issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Robinson?
Welcome to Lake Worth Beach. Thank you. And I look forward to your working with Commissioner Hardy on education. And I appreciate your efforts in Tallahassee. It appears to be based on fairness and progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your being here. City Manager, do you have? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I just wanted to say your boundless energy is so refreshing in Tallahassee. I remember calling late one evening to meet with Jeff Atwater, and he was there like a jackrabbit, just amazing. And I'm very grateful for the energy and devotion to this community. It's very refreshing.
I remember that. That was like 11 o'clock at night or something.
Yes, I felt very guilty when your wife answered the phone.
Well, the Vice Mayor always says, what was your phrase? If you don't have
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
You're on the menu.
yeah.
That's right.
And you're actually letting us be at the table, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lake Worth Beach.
Thank you.
I've got to run to another.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, item 5B, proclamation declaring June 27th, 2019 as National HIV Testing Day. Is there anyone here to see the proclamation?
I know.
Hey,
Our friends at Compass.
get up close in person.
Whereas in the United States, over 1 million people are infected with HIV, with a new infection occurring every 13 minutes, resulting in an estimated 40,000 new HIV infections annually. And whereas in Florida, more than 116,900 people are living with HIV, and 1 in 8 HIV-infected individuals don't know they're infected. And whereas in Palm Beach County, more than 8,400 people, or 1 in 170 residents, are living with HIV. And whereas significant new and highly advanced treatments deliver hope and enhance the quality of life for those who are affected, these considerable advancements can only help individuals if they know their HIV status and are linked into life-saving medical care. And whereas each year on June 27th, we observe National HIV Testing Day to raise awareness about the importance of HIV testing and early diagnosis of HIV and linkage to medical care, and to inspire the nation to achieve its shared vision of 0 new HIV infections, 0 discrimination, and 0 AIDS-related deaths. And whereas the 90-90-90 ambitious global plan to help end the AIDS epidemic has set its targets for 2020 that 90% of all people living with HIV/AIDS will know their HIV status. 90% of all people with diagnosed HIV will receive sustained ART, and 90% of all people receiving antiretroviral therapy will have viral suppression. And whereas this year marks the 25th anniversary, the annual observance of National HIV Testing Day on June 27th, and the Palm Beach County HIV Community Prevention Partnership and the Palm Beach County HIV Care Council, through its partners, are working together to provide HIV testing throughout Palm Beach County during the week surrounding HIV Testing Day. That's June 23rd through the 29th. Now, therefore, I, Pam Triolo, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim June 27th, 2019 as National HIV Testing Day.
Interrupt.
Oh, yay, I get to say something. Woohoo, that's a first. So definitely thank you to everybody, definitely the city of Lake Worth Beach, for having not only Compass, the Gay and Lesbian Community Center here in the city of Lake Worth Beach, but also allowing us to do all the work that we do, not only for the LGBTQ community, but also for the HIV positive community. And thank you for always having our back. So we look forward to serving the community more.
And don't you have an event coming up this weekend?
Yeah, we do have the Stonewall Ball coming up June 22nd at the Harriet Hemmel, and we hope to see everybody there. So we'll see y'all then.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commission Liaison Reports and Comments. Commissioner Hardy.
I don't have much other than, as I said in the last meeting, we constituted a new chapter of the Congress for the New Urbanism here in Palm Beach County. And I had the privilege of attending the 27th National Congress of the Congress for the New Urbanism. Learned a lot about, ways that we can improve, the city as far as walkability and it was a really great time. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not much other than to report that some of the lessons we learned in Tallahassee this session by our not getting the appropriations that we had looked for the SIMRAC program, the Gulfstream Current program. Took it upon myself to visit the offices of all 27 members of Congress for the state of Florida to make sure that they are fully aware of this project and to get their buy-in, if you will, when the time comes for the ask at the Department of Energy level. My understanding is that over the years, wind energy, tidal energy, and Gulf current energy has been funded by the Department of Energy in various ways, but I understand that there may have been a miscalculation in how the monies were dispensed to the wind and to the wave segment of that research. So the opportunity is ripe right now for us to get up there and grab a little bit bigger share, if you will, of research dollars to bring back here to Florida and make this Gulfstream Current to energy program a reality for the city of Lake Worth Beach, as well as the state of Florida. It's a huge project that will generate hundreds and hundreds of jobs and put Lake Worth Beach and the state of Florida clearly on the global map as far as green energy is concerned, as far as being a leader is concerned. And I can't tell you how many mega millions of dollars of investment will be coming into Palm Beach County as a result of this. So we've got a pulse on this, and we're going to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen in Washington that happened at Tallahassee when the time is right for the appropriations ask. That's all I have.
Vice Mayor.
A few things. So we have Sober Home Task Force meeting coming up. We have June 28th and also July 30th, and then we'll be taking the month of August a break, and then we'll be back in September. And I was happy to be appointed second vice president of the Palm Beach County League of Cities and reappointed to the Florida League of Cities. I sit on the transportation board. We had the chance to talk to Tri-Rail, and I asked them if there was any grant money or partnerships to upgrade our Tri-Rail station to bring it, up to today's standards. So we'll have those conversations. Also, we had a presentation from DOT and the Turnpike. They're looking at doing a test site in northern Florida for autonomous vehicles. And again, if you remember the 5G that's going in through the downtown, we didn't have a lot of say in it because our home rule was sideswiped in Tallahassee. I reminded them that we would like to be at the table before they start bringing autonomous vehicles to our city and what that might look like and mean. So hopefully we'll be at the table. Coming up, we have Mango Fest Saturday in the downtown plaza, at the Cultural Plaza. Always a great event. We had the Crossing for the Cure, huge turnout last weekend, and I want to thank Lauren and her staff and all the lifeguards and everybody that participated. Remind everyone, great 4th of July in the downtown Lake Worth. We'll start on the 3rd of July with what we call a little battle of the bands in the plaza. It gets us kick-started. The band that actually wins will get to play at the 4th of July. 4th of July, we'll start with the raft races, and I understand the city of Lake Worth Beach is going to win this year. And then also July 5th, we continue to party at our downtown block party in downtown. A couple other things. New website's up. Please visit Lake Worth Beach, the new website. Yay. And in closing, I just wanted to remind everybody about Madeline McKendry's passing. Her services will be Sunday at 3 p.m. at the church on the corner at 10th and Palmway North.
Commissioner Robinson?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for mentioning all the activities that are going on in Lake Worth, Lake Worth Beach, the Mango Fest, paddleboard, and the website. And I too was at the Congress of New Urbanism, and it was informative, educational. I'm grateful to have been there to learn more about the ADUs, the Opportunity Zone, and the issue of parking in cities that are evolving. I look forward to our solar activity in terms of car recharge, stations, charging stations, and having a policy that all our single cars are electric. I'm a lot disappointed in the progress of the pool evolution, but there is movement, but we won't be talking about it until August, which means that we're only going to have one meeting in July to do any business. I am disappointed that our schedule isn't a little tighter than that. And that's it for me.
Okay, I want to thank everyone that came out for the Crossing for the Cure with cystic fibrosis. Let me tell you something. Piper's Angels, there's a little girl who, a lot of people, if they're not familiar with cystic fibrosis, most of the kids that have this disease don't live past 5 years old. And they've been making great strides in finding a cure. And this gentleman who just loves Lake Worth Beach, and his daughter, he's been helping us out in many ways, helping with children's programs at the Hatch and doing all different kinds of things. He started this thing, Crossing for a Cure, which is basically people paddling from Bimini to Lake Worth Beach. Started down, I think, in Fort Lauderdale, which was too far, or started somewhere else, which was too close, and turned out that Lake Worth Beach, once again, was the sweet spot. Isn't that nice to be found the sweet spot again and again lately, instead of the old days? So anyway, they had this race. Could you imagine all of these? Last year, I think it started with like 15 people coming across Bimini. Then it went to 50. Then it went to 100 and something last year. This year, they had 225 paddlers. And you're talking, imagine on a paddleboarding 80 miles across. They leave at 1 o'clock in the morning. And they come over to the beach. And when they came over to the beach, many of them could barely move their arms and legs, and they were cramped up. And it was incredible. I was there for the awards ceremony. I can't believe it. I brought my paddle that they gave us to bring in here, and I walked out of my office without it. So forgive me, but it was just truly inspiring. And they have decided last year and now this year to make Lake Worth Beach their home, and they've asked if we would be their home city for time to come. So I'm very, very grateful for that. I haven't mentioned anything in the last year about me really traveling anywhere because I've been saving up for the big one. I've been asked to be a speaker at the U.S. Conference of Mayors next week. And I'm going to be one of the keynote speakers at an event, which is on ocean current energy. We are also up for an award as small cities. Now when you go to this conference, it's kind of intimidating too. I'm a little bit nervous about it because, you've got the mayors of New York and Los Angeles and San Francisco, all these major cities that are there and their entourages and bodyguards and people, whatever. And then you've got, all the small little cities in the rest of America. So it's a little nerve wracking when you go there. But, last year I went to the summer conference and, I listened to a lot of the projects that were talking about, reducing the carbon footprint and what these cities are doing to do these things. And the awards went up and I'm thinking, I didn't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm like, we're doing so much more here in Lake Worth Beach, and they were big cities and whatnot. Anyway, we applied for some, awards in regards to it, and there's separated into small cities and big cities. So small cities are 100,000 or less, and big cities are everything above that. So we are up for 2 awards, and we got chosen for our ocean current energy project and also for our solar farm. So hopefully, I don't know, hopefully I'll be bringing home the gold or something. But, I thought we were pretty special last year, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to go there. But I'm excited. I'm going to try to get someone to videotape it so you can see it and bring it home. I've got my presentation. I was practicing all day today. So hopefully I'll be able to, we'll be able to celebrate that when I get back. TPA is Thursday in Belglade. We rotate around. And so I'll be at that meeting, and that's enough for now. Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. All right, public participation on non-agended items and consent agenda items. So anyone, I see some new faces here. If you would like to participate or come up to the microphone and speak, fill out a blue card, and it's got to be for anything that isn't on the schedule. Okay, so if there's an item on the agenda, you can fill out a card for that specific item. This is for anything that's not on the agenda that you just want to talk about in regards to the community or whatever. Okay, so you need to bring your card up and you would give it to the city manager, and I'll call you one by one. You have 3 minutes. We've increased the time for anyone who used to come in the old days. We've increased the time from 2 minutes to 3 minutes that you have to speak. And when that 3 minutes is up, I'm going to say things like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I just want to make sure we have time for everybody to speak. And you'll hear a little buzzer that goes off. But a lot of people, when they get so excited and nervous coming up to talk, they don't hear that little buzzer for some reason, and I have to say thank you. So don't mind me for that. All right, so any blue cards for public participation of non-agenda items?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
And I get the joy too. If you want to complain about anything, don't complain. Or if you want to complain about anybody up here on the dais, don't complain about them. You have to complain to me. I get the good fortune of absorbing all that positive energy. Okay. First up, Mirka Zuniga, and then on deck, Leanne Britton. Mirka, is it Mirka? Did I spell it? Pronounce it right? And if I butcher your name, I'm so sorry.
No worries. It's Mirka.
Mirka.
Close. Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
And just state your
members.
address too for record.
My name is Mirka Zuniga. Address is 622 Royal Palm Drive in Lake Worth. Lake Worth Beach. So I'm here on behalf of Academy for Positive Learning. A little over a decade ago, my family and I moved to the city of Lake Worth Beach, where I began attending Academy for Positive Learning. Little did I know that I would grow to love the school so much that now my son, Noah Zuniga, attends it. I could not imagine him going to another school other than A4PL. He absolutely loves it and is learning so much. It is the only A and B school in the city and by far the best option for him. I have also returned to my beloved school, but now as a Spanish teacher, and I love it. The reason I'm standing here today in front of you is to ask on behalf of our students, parents, teachers, staff, friends, and family to please allow us to keep our portables for 1 more year. That's all we need. My son, whose class is in the portables, has not once complained in any way, shape, or form about them. I teach in them, and they're in great condition and very well maintained. I understand that they're not the most appealing thing to look at, but it's not more important than what goes inside those 4 walls. We are teaching our children, we are enriching the minds of our future, and all we ask for is 1 more year, 180 school days. Please don't take this ability away from our students. I'm aware the agreement for the portables was to be gone last year, I believe. I know that the agreement wasn't upheld, but on behalf of A4PL, I apologize sincerely for any inconvenience it has caused. We understand that the portables are not appealing to adults from the outside, but this issue goes beyond a broken agreement and some unattractive buildings. This more important issue is the education of an underprivileged population of children. This school is a second home to these children, and for some of them, it's a first home. We ask from the bottom of our hearts to please let us keep these portables for just one more year, and come June 2020, they will be gone. We will pack up our 15 years of memories in the city of Lake Worth Beach and move on to another location. Please don't make us have to break the hearts of our students by telling them that we don't have space for them, because without these portables, we need to cut our enrollment by more than half. It'd be forcing our children to leave behind their friends, teachers, and their most safe and happy place. Let's reach a resolution. Please let us keep our portables for just one more year and allow us to choose the chapter of A4PL in the city of Lake Worth Beach in the happiest way possible. I know the portables aren't amazing, they're not beautiful, but they're well maintained, they're organized, they're clean, our kids love them. That's where we teach, that's where these children are learning. It's impossible for us to pack up a whole school and all of these kids and move them like in less than 2 months. School starts in August, it's impossible. And I understand that. I understand that they're not beautiful, I understand they're not new, they're not modern. But all we want is just one more school year. June 2020, they're gone. We will move to a new location, to a new permanent home, which was the idea here, but unforeseen circumstances happened. So that's all we ask from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne Britton, followed by Sarah Maliga. Leanne Britton? No? Okay. You'll need to fill out a card. Okay.
Is that okay?
I'll let you. I'll use the mayor's privilege. Yes. Just have her. I just need you to fill out. You have a card filled out.
I started doing it.
Okay.
I haven't finished, but I'll do it as I speak. My name is Marlene Olivo, and I'm sorry.
Address.
2528 Flamingo Lake Drive. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. I do apologize. I don't live in Lake Worth Beach. However, my son does attend Academy for Positive Learning, and he has been there for 4 years now. Now, my school was an A school, or is an A school, but I chose to put him at Academy for Positive Learning because he learns better in a smaller setting. So he's done very positive there. So I'm just here to support the school and to think that they might not have the same number of students that they have now because of the portable. They're not ugly. They're not mistreated. They're not, like falling apart. And they have this huge wall in front of them that the only thing you see is the top. Another thing is to Mr. Harding, you say you're a teacher. I just want to point out that
Direct towards me. I'm sorry. You have to.
sorry, that Academy for Positive Learning is an AB school, and there's not a lot of schools in Lake Worth Beach right now that are there. So not downing one over the other, I just wanted to point that out, that it is a great school. The kids that are there love it, and it would be a disservice to the children if half of them got to go and half of them didn't. To do a lottery pick or whoever filled out first, that's what I wanted to bring into the conversation. And you're here.
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
sorry. I'm Lee Burton.
But can she finish
Okay.
up?
Sure, Lee Britton, come on up. Can I have your card, please? Okay. Thank you.
You'll fill that out when I'm done. I do
I
apologize.
have your card.
There's a question about whether she's using her time or she gets a separate
Oh,
time.
she had a separate card.
Starts over.
Start
A
over.
new
So
time.
it starts
start it
over.
again.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. First, thank you, everybody, for being here.
Can you say your name and your address?
Lee Ann Britton, and the teacher put my name in. The actual physical address is 168 Longfellow Drive in Palm Springs.
I'm sorry.
Palm Springs, Lake Worth. This is hitting home a lot for me. My son has been a student at Academy for Positive Learning since he was in kindergarten. He's about to enter his 8th grade year. I do not know what I would have done without the support of Academy for Positive Learning for the last 8 years, not only for me, but for my son. We have had major life tragedies. He has lost his father. He still finished the year with straight A's and testing highs on the FSAs. And then it again touches base for him and his heritage. My son is a 5th generation Palm Beach native. His grandmother and grandfather started Spencer Marina back in the 1940s, which is where he's carrying on the name. My son is an ancestor of the 20 families that originated here in Lake Worth in the 1860s. I don't know what we would have done without the school. I've heard there are complaints is visually unappealing. If it's visually unappealing, then why isn't North Grade removing their portables also? This is a public charter school. A has been an A most of the years, and a few years a B. They are one of your best elementary middle schools in Palm Beach or in Lake Worth. We have done everything, put a beautiful mural wall up to try to hide the portables as much as possible. But North Grade still has them. They're not doing that. Lake Worth High School has them, and they're not doing it. My son is about to go into his 8th grade, and I would be destroyed as my son if he was not able to go back and finish his final year and graduate from Academy for Positive Learning because you guys chose the portables are visually unappealing. I'm sorry, so are the halfway houses and the treatment facilities. It's not visually appealing, but we deal with it. The #1 concentration here should be the education of our children of the future.
Thank you. Sarah Maliga, followed by Peggy Fisher.
Sarah Maliga, 408 South E Street. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. On behalf of the Stonewall Ball Host Committee for Compass for the 2nd year, I wanted to come before you and say thank each and every one of you for your support this year, for buying a ticket, for supporting Compass and all that it does for our community, and I look forward to seeing you all there on Saturday. Thank you again.
Peggy Fisher.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. I couldn't come to your meeting 2 weeks ago, but I did view the video. And I'd like to talk about net metering. There was a lot of pointing fingers at other people as whose fault it was. Well, Mayor, you and 2 other of the commissioners sitting beside you approved that 2012 resolution. So you should have remembered it. You should have known. There should have been some record of it. Since 2008 or 2009, the city has been filing the required report on net metering to the PSC Commission, which is part of the state statute. So someone in the city sure knew the state laws to have kept filing that report. And surprisingly, since 2010, the same person who is still an employee of this city in the utility department has been filing that report. So oh, not us, gets to me a little bit. These reports can be found online, which is what I did this afternoon and had done before. I also heard a lot about the pricing for net metering and how it needed to come before the UAB board, but we didn't discuss it. We tabled it. Well, we tabled it because when we got in the meeting, we were told there was a potential conflict, not before, but at the table. And the 2 commissioners who were told they might have a conflict were told if they wanted to speak or they wanted to have anything, that what they could do would be resign from the board. Right there. Isn't that wonderful? Hey, you want to have any say, just resign, then you can do it. That's one way to get a vote the way we want. So I just tired of the game being played. about what our board does or doesn't do. We don't meet, or the board, I won't say our board, the board doesn't meet. When it does meet, we are just sort of all of a sudden, here, we're going to have a meeting. We don't meet every month. We haven't met every month since last summer. So I don't like being pointed at that we didn't do something about rates for net metering. I made the motion to table that agenda item because I didn't think it was fair to my fellow volunteers who were sitting there. And I don't think it's right not to take responsibility. This city fell down. They didn't abide by what their own rules. They have let people skate by not holding them accountable for not doing their jobs. I get paid, and if I don't do my job, I don't get paid. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy Panza?
Thank you.
Hi there, Tammy Panza, 116 North L. I'm afraid I'm a little behind on the contents of today's agenda because I'm having a hard time getting the backup. So I wanted to reiterate the communication and the availability of backup agendas, additions and deletions is getting to be so cost prohibitive, time consuming, that it is not giving reasonable access to the average resident, the access to what's going on in the city. I am appreciative that the new website is up, but there's no search function on it. Why is there no search function for a brand new page? I was trying to find the trash schedule the other day. It's not readily available. It's really hard to read. It seems to me that it's designed for a cell phone where you open it up on a desktop and there's like 3 little squares and no information whatsoever. I am really hoping that this is a beginning to what will hopefully become a more fleshed out website. I also want to say something briefly about the solar power. I'm not sure what's going on with the board or anything like that. I know that's on the agenda at another time, but I really think that as much oversight that we can have with our electric utility, with regard also to communicating all of these really complicated things to the residents. It's important that they can understand what's going on. I know I don't attend very much of the electric utility meetings that are held at the commission meeting. They're at the end of a really long agenda. Most of the time you don't understand half of it and we're all tired. So by the end of the commission meeting, I just scoot out of here because most of the time my eyes are crossed. But some of the EUAB members and other people have a really good way of explaining it in people's terms to, I thought that was my buzzer, to the people where it could be put on Facebook or discussed at a meeting or a neighborhood association meeting. So I would like to also ask that the advisory boards be kept as they are, the opinion of them be taken into consideration when you're making decisions, and really utilize them to help communicate what we need to communicate with the residents of the city, because we are not communicating as well or as thoroughly as we could be. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, are there any more cards?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seeing there are none. Approval of the consent agenda as amended. Second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on to our public hearing. It's ordinance number 2019-5, second reading on public hearing, increased business tax receipt rates.
Do we,
Moved by,
Seconded.
seconded by Commissioner Hardy. Commissioner Robinson?
It's gonna go into new business.
Okay.
It's coming up.
so yes.
Those two are.
No.
Okay.
Good.
This is the one we discussed last time, but the city attorney, you need to read the ordinance, please.
Okay. Ordinance number 2019-05 of the City Commission of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14,
business tax receipts and business regulations. Article 1, local business tax receipt, Section 14-24, business tax schedule, to provide an increase in the local business tax receipt rates by 5% effective July 1st, 2019, in accordance with Section 205.0534, 35 subsection 4 Florida statutes, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
We've got a motion on the floor and a second. Are there any public comment cards?
No, Madam Mayor.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on to new business. Please do remember, we have 3 items added under new business. They are item B, which is discussion on the agenda making process. Item C from the consent agenda, which was Resolution 23-2009, Transfer Development Right Bank. And item H, which was from Purchase Order with SolarMax LED. Okay, we're going to move on to item A, which is Ordinance 1906. City Attorney, could you read the ordinance for me too, please? That is the amending the prohibition on open containers of alcoholic beverages in public places.
I'm looking for it.
It's 2019-06.
It's marked. Yeah, we did. Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
No, that's not it. That's business tax receipts. Which item is it?
I'm sorry.
It is item 13A.
12A.
12A.
12A, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Everybody's confused.
I don't think we
Christy
marked it.
gave her a bum agenda.
I'm sorry.
Anyone have 12A?
Anybody have it?
it?
12A, 12A. Why don't we have 12A?
Here.
12A. I'll give her my agenda.
Thank you.
Say it's
Sorry.
on
So, it's in there.
Okay.
Ball guys.
Ordinance number 2019-06 of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 5, Alcoholic Beverages, Section 5-9, no possession of open containers of alcoholic beverage outdoors/public places or vehicles to address open containers in commercial establishment parking lots and for other purposes, and providing for severability, repeal of laws in conflict, codification, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do we have anything on this?
I have,
Okay, Vice Mayor?
I need to talk to staff on a couple questions. Who's going to be my best staff to answer questions? I tried to reach out to Captain Bear today, but I didn't get him.
Yeah, if you can ask your questions even between
Okay, so
Bostic and myself.
I'm very supportive of this, and it comes to my desk quite often, but there's been quite often there is a no trespassing sign that I'm being told cannot be used anymore. Are we still using the non-trespassing signs, and can the officers still, from what I understand, they're using it, they're arresting somebody, and then it's being thrown out?
How does this have to do with alcoholic beverages?
I'm getting to it because it's alcoholic beverages in places, for instance, like my parking lot or the public's parking lot. But you quite often need a victim. And if there's not a sign that says no trespassing and you get a victim, the officer is unable to arrest the person.
That's why it was brought to our attention, and we asked that the wording be changed in the ordinance and the alcoholic beverage the ordinance with that it be changed to public place. Once they change it to public place, we're able to enforce that without having a victim.
Without having the sign or the victim.
That is correct.
So if you come into a Publix parking lot at 11 o'clock at night, Publix is closed, and there's issues, you're able to arrest them under this ordinance.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that what we're approving here works for you in the field, because quite often we make decisions and they don't necessarily translate into something that you can completely use.
Correct. With the changes in the ordinance now, we can do the scenario that you had just explained.
Okay.
Now, my question on this is, for the small business owner, okay, how does the nuisance laws fall into place? Like, okay, if you're a small business owner and you don't operate in the evening hours and your place is being frequented, or say if you have 3 calls or more, how we have on nuisance abatement. So if you have three calls for somebody consuming alcohol in your parking lot? Is that going to be the same
I think
strenuous?
the nuisance abatement should still take place if your business is closed.
Well, I'm saying because it'll be hard for, I mean, most small businesses don't have security teams that monitor their parking lots in the middle of the night, and that would be kind of,
But having sat on the nuisance abatement with the sheriff's department, they look at that and they take that into consideration. For instance, my old shop at 600 Lake Avenue, I had the most amount of calls to service because, again, we were open and we saw what was going on and we called. So feasibly, I would be a nuisance property and or the area. However, they take that into consideration that, you know, it's something, you know, the sheriff's department and, you know, again, if it's something that is like heavily major drug, they're going to, and the nuisance abatement board always goes and has conversations with the owner and says, we need you to look at putting cameras up, we need you to police it, they always have that conversation.
And if you're showing some willingness to help, we are going to help. Yes.
okay. I just don't want somebody being financially strapped for
Correct.
handling a situation
And we understand
overnight
that.
based on the
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Hardy?
That was it. All my questions and issues were answered. I appreciate the way that this was drafted. It was drafted to really focus on some of these commercial properties, and so there's very little chance of ensnaring, for example, a resident who. Right. So, I won't go right. Who might enjoy a beer on their porch. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys bringing this to us. A lot of times, residents want us to enforce some of the things that they know to be, the law. Obviously, you can't drink certain places, but there are all these legal issues in between us and the enforcement. So I appreciate you enabling us to enforce some of the laws and ordinances that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager.
I just wanted to also thank the Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant and Captain for bringing this forward and working with my staff. We don't stop. We're always constantly trying to figure out ways to improve, and I appreciate the Sheriff's help in this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We've got a motion on the floor to second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We're moving on to item 12B, discussion item. Again, it's a discussion item. We're not looking for a vote on this. Discussion item seeking direction on how commissioners place items on the agenda.
No, it's
Isn't that
B,
it?
it's on the consent.
No, B?
No.
No, B is this one.
This was an
there
additions,
was the other
deletions.
This is the one that the city clerk made first,
Oh,
and then
okay.
it goes to the two that Commissioner Robinson did. Trust me, I run this thing.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Are you,
please.
okay, I'll proceed. We've had some discussions with some of the commissioners about getting items before you for consideration as a body, to have policy discussion, to have workshop sessions, to devote the time, effort, and energy to work with different issues. And right now, I believe each of you have the resolution before you that we currently operate under, where if a commissioner wants to bring something before the body, they can, just as I can and staff, create an agenda item and submit it so many days before, and it would be placed on the agenda. There's been some further conversation that maybe there needs to be some other opportunities for ways for this to happen. I needed some direction to see if that's something you're interested in having this conversation about a little more. Some other cities have a time during their meeting where it's, I don't want to say it's an open forum time, but it's a time where it's dedicated to having some kind of a discussion among the commission where they can provide direction to staff. I also would appreciate some more direction on some issues that once we get into them, they're a little more time consuming. And I know that if we're going forward with devoting the time and resources of your staff to do something, it takes away in some cases from other opportunities or activities. So it's hard for me to kind of provide that balance without some clear direction from this body. And that was the reason we wanted to have this discussion, is to try to get some input and direction from you on how to proceed if you want to change the current process, which is spelled out in the ordinance, the resolution you have before you. Page 5, it says that commissioners can submit agenda items. And then on page 7, it covers the timeframes to submit.
When was this information provided?
The reso, I just put it on your desk. It's what we've been operating under since
Okay, and this item was just added to the agenda today?
It was
Tonight?
added Friday.
Friday afternoon. Because I didn't get it on Thursday. All right, well, I just want to say, first of all, I want to also discuss adding things to the agenda and not having, it's been mentioned time and time again, we've been adding a lot of things last minute and changing a lot of things around. In the past, my policy has been no. Unless it was an emergency or to adapt to somebody's presentation or somebody being late or whatever else. I'm really starting to get aggravated by the amount of information that's being floated in at the last minute. I understand if a vote needs to happen or something happens and the funding isn't coming through. There are emergencies, I get it, and I've made exceptions for those, but now it just seems like every time something wants to get added, it gets added at the last minute. And I'm gonna start saying no to it because I really believe that we need more time to reference the backup materials for it. The community needs the time to reference the backup materials for it. If it wasn't in by Thursday of the week prior, it doesn't go on unless it's an emergency. And that's clearly stated in there, but I'm saying, but it hasn't been done. It's been loosey-goosey and based on, the events of the last couple of meetings when somebody doesn't want to go to a workshop and then someone wants to go to a workshop and it depends on where you are on the side of the argument. We're going half hour to workshop. We're going to obey the rules. We're going to follow the rules and I'm going to bang the hammer a lot. If you don't like it, it's too bad because we're going back to why the rules were created, which was to give us and the people of our community, taxpayers, shareholders of our city, a chance to review the information, be able to put together their thoughts so they can come here to these meetings and be educated like we are and have the time to review the information in the proper way. It's been too much, and I'm putting my foot down. As for the agenda items, I don't know. You guys want to talk about how the agenda items get added? And I'm sorry, I think Commissioner Robinson is up first. Commissioner Robinson?
Yes, I do want to talk about how the agenda items come up, and it's easy to say no when things come up that should be discussed. We can't talk amongst ourselves unless we're sitting up here. We talk to the city manager, and my frustration is that I expect something to happen, and it doesn't because he's able to converse with the other commissioners and then decide that it's not on the agenda or won't be on the agenda because there's not a consensus, not in the public. We should be a deliberative body that if we have issues, we should be able to reasonably talk about it on the dais. And to be not allowed to discuss community issues is frustrating for me. I have conversations with the city manager that I reasonably expect to be discussed on the dais, and they're not. And so it's getting a little frustrating for me to have issues like the CRA, the evaluation, the lack of guidance from the board, which I've heard a lot, to the city manager, and we refuse to talk about it. I think maybe we should have, not a workshop to talk about workshops, but a meeting to talk about the agenda. Or to discuss items that we might want to have on the agenda, and we might all decide to vote no, which is fine. I'm okay with democracy, but not to be able to talk about it publicly is frustrating for the public. It's frustrating for me because I have interests that seem to fall flat before. And because I can't bring them up to you all four, they fall flat because of the way it's been happening. I just think we need to talk about how it's happening. Enough said.
Commissioner Hardy?
Sure. I'll address a few things in my comments on this discussion item. The first thing is the rules, in particular Rule 12, Section 3, explains how additions are to be handled, and they're supposed to be done on an emergency basis, and there's supposed to be a written justification for that. And we have not received, for example, from staff, because typically we don't
add things to the agenda as an addition or deletion. All of the additions come from staff. We have not seen from staff written justifications that will justify why this should be added on this particular agenda as opposed to waiting it out for the next agenda, given that we have a time frame for these things to occur. So that's number one. The other thing is that the ability, or rather the discretion, to decide whether or not these additions will indeed be added is given to the commission as a whole. And I think we do that pretty well at the beginning of the meetings. We've had some controversy with consent agenda items, whether to move them, but I think we're pretty good on that. The other thing is, and Mr. City Manager, you know that I sent you a rather long email about this in December of 2017, which was about 9 months after I was first elected. And, they say it takes about a year for you to learn how to do your job. So about 9 months in, I wrote you an email about some of the things that concerned me. And one of them was the process for individual commissioners. We all represent folks here in the city. The process by which individual commissioners might get things on the agenda for our commissioners to be able to take action on it, right? So some folks have said that this is a board of directors, and our president sits at the far end of this dais. And some folks have a different view, that this is a sort of legislative body, that it's our job to make laws here for the city. I would say that we're at least that. And I think it's really important for us to function when one of us has a good idea. We have to be able to discuss it in detail with our colleagues, and not in a loosey-goosey way, as sometimes we have when these discussion items are put on and there's not much structure, which these kind of structures, commissioners need help from staff in order to get that. And so, in December of 2017, I wrote you in detail and said there needs to be a process, right, for commissioners to put their ideas on an agenda with some language, whether it's an idea to amend some ordinances with some legal language, or some things that people can vote yay or nay on, so that we can discuss, decide, and move on. And that hasn't really happened. The other thing, and I'm wondering if I'm the only person to have experienced this, there have been times when I, for example, may have wanted to put something on the agenda for action to be taken, and I'm basically told, no, not right now, we don't have the bandwidth, etc. And, my feeling is that's not okay. Again, each one of us who sits up here was elected by folks who expect us to do their work. And I recognize that staff has day-to-day responsibilities, that if we had unlimited power to some might say, my gosh, what's the word? Oh my goodness. Distract. I was thinking detract, and that was not the correct word. Distract staff. Some might say that our individual agendas might distract staff. I don't see how what individual members of the commission might want could be a distraction when it's our job to represent folks, right? So there needs to be some process. If that means that we get a limited number of opportunities, as Representative Caruso said, he gets 6 slots, right? And he gets 6 slots, and that's all that he gets, right? So if there's a process whereby we get 3 or 4 chances throughout the year to put legislative language in front of our colleagues to vote yay or nay on, so that we don't distract staff, I can understand that. But there has to be a way. Like, we can't hear, no, there's no bandwidth, we don't have the time. That's not, in my opinion, an acceptable response from a staff member as far as getting things on the agenda. So that's my 2 cents on that. So I personally would expect from here on a written justification for new things to be added onto the agenda, and I want there to be a process. I've been asking for this for a while. I want to see it.
Ms. Mayor?
I had a couple comments. So we have a reso in front of us that was from 2017, and it's pretty clear. It reads, Matters may be placed on the agenda by a commissioner, the city manager, or the city attorney. And then farther in, it says agenda submitted deadline. The deadline for submitting items for inclusion on an agenda shall be no later than 12 p.m. on Friday, 11 days prior to a regular scheduled commission meeting. And I know that you never want to hear from the professional staff that carry out our direction on a regular basis, because sometimes you think you know more than they, but I quite often have a recommendation or a suggestion that came through the community after talking to my district. For instance, I wanted to ban cigarette butts on the beach. It irks me that you can lay on the beach and use it as an ashtray and it's totally acceptable. But when I brought it to staff and the city attorney, they told me that there are quite a lot of case law that has sued cities, and I chose not to move that forward until we get something from Tallahassee or Washington, because I didn't want to challenge and spend taxpayers' dollars on something that, after talking to staff, I didn't think it could go very far right now. I'm hoping Tallahassee and Washington will change that, just like the governor just vetoed the ban on straws. So now I can bring my ordinance back on behalf of the residents to ban plastic straws. So quite often I get to staff and I have the conversation with staff or the city manager, the attorney, and it changes my opinion based on case law, based on history, based on other cities. But I see that, you know, in 2017, we have a clear way of doing it. So that's kind of how I've done it. You know, I try to get, you know, anything that I'm interested in a timely manner. And if I don't, I wait, because I'm also concerned that the residents don't have time. My fellow commissioners and mayor don't have time to do the backup, research it, and understand exactly what I'm trying to do on behalf of the residents in my district. And I want to make sure that there's enough backup in there, that we have time, and the residents have a clear message on, you know, what's going on.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Frankly, this is one of those conversations that really would require a workshop, to tell you the truth. You know, I concur with Vice Mayor Amoroso. I mean, it's pretty much, the process is laid out. Here's kind of how I look at this. You know, I've been around a while, okay? And my question to my colleagues here is, what is it that we're doing differently in Lake Worth Beach that's being done elsewhere in other municipalities? If there's a best practice out there that you can point to that brings us to where you need to be, then let's find out what that best practice is, and let's take a look at it. I look at it this way. I believe I have a pretty good recollection and understanding of where the capacity or bandwidth, if you will, of our professional staff. Okay? There are a lot of projects, there are a lot of initiatives, there are a lot of things that this professional staff have been working on for a very, very long time, longer than some of us have been up on this commission. And I think that, you know, you want to talk about representing your district and your constituency, that's great. We're all about good constituency services. But I would suggest that a good leader recognizes and prioritizes the things they're going to bring forward to the commission based on the ability of the body to get it done in a reasonable time. And is it really the best use of time? I'm still waiting for my shopping cart ordinance for 3 years. But you don't hear me up here complaining about it, because I can see where our city is going. I can see the direction that our staff is going in terms of implementing our policy. So at the end of the day, you can't put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack. Okay, and you can't rearrange the deck chairs on the cruise ship either. This commission, there are a lot of priorities that the city has adopted over the last 4 or 5 years that this administration is in the process of implementing. Where you're not going, in my humble opinion, I would say the staff is not going to stop what they're doing to add new items on there, especially if those new items may be in conflict with the direction the ship was sailing in the first place. That is a disservice. You know, you talk about bureaucracy and big government and not getting stuff done. That's exactly how stuff doesn't get done. because you don't stick to a policy or a protocol or a direction that was laid out, that was clearly laid out, and is in the process of being implemented. Now, I would suggest that our two newest commissioners here, I felt in my heart that you guys came on board, be a part of what was already in play in our city. And you've got some great ideas, but there's some things that are taking up a lot of time of staff. And I personally don't think that any one of us has the right to impose on staff and take up their time at the expense of other things getting done. So that's kind of where we are. So again, I would go back to both Commissioner Omari and Commissioner Robinson. If there's a best practice out there that gets us where you want to be, let's put it on the table and talk about it. But there's nothing wrong with the process that we have in place right now. I don't think. I don't think it's so broken that we can't work with it. I hope I made some sense on that.
Commissioner Robinson?
We don't know if we don't work it. The West Palm has a best practice of bringing up agenda items, talking about whether they want to continue discussion or not, and then they set an agenda. Is that a best practice? I think it is. And this, who's in charge here? I mean, I was told when I first was elected that the only people I talk to are Mike and the city manager and assistant city manager. So I try and do that. But I go to them and ask for information and am concerned about issues, and then it seems to drift off like a shopping cart ordinance. Doesn't happen. Have we voted on a shopping cart ordinance? I'm ready to vote on a shopping cart ordinance, and I'm ready to vote on a lot of other things that don't even come up for discussion. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about democracy and debate and deliberation on, did you seriously expect two new people just to go along, to get along? I mean, really, I'm sorry that we have to have this type of discussion, but you continue to ask for direction, and then I request that we talk about it, and then we don't talk about it.
Commissioner Hardy?
The first thing that I'll say is that if Commissioner Maxwell had an idea 3 years ago, and 3 years ago he brought that idea to staff, and he feels that that idea would better his community, then staff needs to help Commissioner Maxwell bring that idea to us so that we can act on it immediately. It is not okay that you have waited 3 years for something that you feel would help the community. And I do not believe that there's any assignment that staff could give themselves that's more important than the assignments that we give staff. That's critical. I do not believe that we should cede one bit the authority that was given to us by people who do not go to work in this building, by people who live in this city, by voters. I do not believe that we should cede that authority to people who are unelected. Our job is to represent our constituents by doing the things that they ask us to do. Our job is also, in this representative form of government, to use our judgment to generate ideas that we think would help the community, and then to put those ideas in front of our colleagues so that our colleagues can deliberate about these ideas and yay or nay these ideas. And I think that is the most important thing that could happen in this building at any given time. Now, the other thing is I have the utmost respect for the incredibly hard work that was done before Commissioner Robinson and I got to this dais. Especially the work that was done by Commissioner Maxwell, because Commissioner Maxwell was here before anyone else who was on this dais. And he was here at a time that it was very difficult to do common sense things. And he was here alone, representing not only the people of the city, but common sense itself in a lot of cases. And so I have the utmost respect
for my colleagues and for the work that they've done. That said, I did not get elected to join someone else's party. I think that we have 5 people up here who were elected at different times, and sometimes we have different ideas, and it's the mixing of these ideas that makes the whole thing go. And you know, I said that when I was sworn in. I said it's our job to work with each other. It's not our job to work for each other. I believe that. And so, you know, by the way, this agenda item, you know, Commissioner Robinson or I, we didn't put this agenda item on. Staff put this agenda item on. So, you know, we're having this conversation under, you know, in that context. I just think it's
Under whose direction? Who brought this?
Precisely. Now, granted, we approved this agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So, look, I just think there needs to be a process for us to get our ideas in front of the other commissioners in ways that we can vote up or down. There is a process, as Vice Mayor Amoroso said, for us to put items on the agenda, but sometimes these items aren't structured in a way that our colleagues are able to yay it or nay it. Like, we're able to get discussion items on, right? But I'm not able to put, like, if Commissioner Maxwell wants a shopping cart ordinance, he should be able to tell staff, I would like a shopping cart ordinance to come in front of my colleagues, and I would like for my colleagues to be able to read this ordinance in the backup like anybody else, and we can call yays and we can call nays. That's not what the process is today. The process is Commissioner Maxwell puts a discussion item on the agenda, and we have this untethered discussion about anything related to shopping carts. That's not helpful, and it's not a good use of the time, right? And so even if we have to limit Commissioner Maxwell to 3 times a year, he gets to use staff and the attorney's time to write some language down to get us to vote, then fine. If we have to limit it that way, then fine. But there has to be a way to get an actionable item on the agenda, not just these discussion items. And that's the issue that's a very specific issue that I raised in an email now over almost 2 years ago. And I think that specifically needs to be addressed. And I don't think that's wasting staff's time. I don't see how any commissioner, anyone who is sent here to represent folks in the city could waste a staff member's time. Their time belongs to the people, and we're their representatives.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. First of all, I don't presume to put words in anybody's mouth. So Commissioner Robinson, you speak for yourself. Those are your words, not my words. Okay. Second of all, I think we're very close in hearing Commissioner Omari speak, and I think even Commissioner Robinson. I think we're close to getting to where we need to be. I think there needs to be a conversation, a time carved out at some point, either during each meeting or once a month or whatever, for us to kind of, you know, whiteboard, if you will, blue sky. Hey, these are the things I'm thinking about. How do we think? Is this something the 5 of us think we might be able to get behind and let staff go off and do what they're going to do? Or if we find that maybe there's no consensus, if you will, to move and advance an item, then it doesn't go before the staff to have staff dig into. I think that's you talk about transparency. What better and more transparent way is there to govern ourselves than to throw our ideas out there in advance for everybody to take a whack at before we have to vote on it? I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a concern with from time to time is when I hear stories about staff being tied up on this item or this item or this other item. I'm thinking, what the hell are you talking about? This hasn't even been discussed. You know, where's my shopping cart ordinance? That's how I feel. That's what I think when I hear about this other item that's being, you know, some other issue that's being addressed by staff. Where's my shopping cart ordinance? So I think we need to come to that type of an understanding. Maybe we do it once a month. Maybe we have a workshop before our meeting, an hour or so. Hey, what do you got, Commissioner or Commissioner Hardy? What do you got? I got this. You know, go right down the list, and then we work it up this way. But I don't think we need to get any concern you may have, and I'm listening to what you're saying, but there's a tone when you talk about the city manager. It's almost like you're accusing him of being the gatekeeper. Yeah, but what he's essentially, we're talking about system-imposed issues. This isn't a personality thing. It isn't, I don't want to do it because I don't like you, or I'm going to do it for you because I like you. It's about, hey, I got staff that I got to balance here. He knows more than we do what's on everybody's plate. So I think, like I said, I think we're onto something here tonight, and I would suggest that we have maybe an hour once a month prior to a meeting to just throw out our ideas and see if we can get some real quick down and dirty consensus. Yeah, let's go with Commissioner Robinson's idea, and no, Vice Mayor, we don't like your idea today, come back next week, or that type of thing. At least we're all on the same page, and we know what staff is dedicating their time to. And by the way, I don't think we're doing anything out of the ordinary in terms of operations that other municipalities go through.
Well, I just wanted to offer my opinion on something. First of all, the city of West Palm Beach, if we can, hold on, guys. The city of West Palm Beach has a meeting before their meetings. So to everyone who thinks the conspiracy theory here in Lake Worth is to keep information away from you, West Palm Beach has meetings before their meetings. And guess what? In their meetings before the meetings, they actually talk with one another to decide exactly that thing. They sit there and they say, well, is that, and why would you do that, and what could that prove, and who was that, and how do you feel about that? And guess what? When they go to their actual meetings up on the dais, they say, are you in favor of, are you not in favor of, yay, nay, and they vote. They allow people to come up and talk, but they've already done their discussion and prioritizing at the meeting before the meeting, which I don't even know if it's open to the public or not. Is it open to the public? Okay.
But it's usually during the day. And
It's usually
not a
during
lot
the
of
day,
people.
whatever. They have that meeting, they hash all that stuff out amongst their commissioners, so they're aware of it when they come to the table at night, they're ready to vote and get business done. That's how they do it. So could you imagine, we're conversing about things in front of the general public and voting on them at the same time. So there is no conspiracy, all that conspiracy stuff makes me crazy. I also don't like people coming up here using the politic and bully pulpit and the whole 9 yards when we have work to get done. So really, I think actually, City Clerk, I believe we're at the half-hour mark, are we not?
I am sorry that I didn't.
Yeah, we
set
started
the
at 7
timer.
o'clock.
I apologize.
I think we're going to have to take this to
Motion
workshop.
to extend the discussion.
Second, we're very close to winding this up.
I thought, see, last week you told me you wanted me to go to a workshop. And then now this week you tell me you don't want me to go to a workshop. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you told me you didn't want to go to a workshop. So
then we vote.
No, ready? I have the floor. I've let you guys talk nonstop. I haven't butt in for one word, okay? This is my chance. You can't, when you agree with it, choose to have it, and when you don't agree with it, not choose to have it. There's a rule that at a half hour, it goes to workshop. Last week, you didn't want a workshop. You wanted a workshop. This week, you don't want a workshop.
Point of
The
information.
time before that is you do want a workshop. These are accurate facts, and we have rules on the book that when it goes beyond 30 minutes, it goes to a workshop. That should give everyone a chance to be able to keep their comments going in a positive direction, offer something new, ask the right questions, and vote on it. First, like I said, first you yelled at me and got very vocal and stormed out of a room because you wanted a workshop. Then you didn't want a workshop. And then you wanted a workshop.
Point of
Again, I'm going to say,
information.
the point of information is it's time to go to a workshop. Thank you very
No,
much.
there was a motion and a second on the floor. The
The
motion
chair
has
doesn't
to be-
recognize the motion.
No, there was a second.
There's a time to go to the workshop. The chair does not recognize the motion. Thank you.
Motion to override the chair.
We're going to be motion. The chair doesn't recognize the motion. We're moving on to a workshop because that's the basis of our rules.
I have made a motion.
You
and
cannot,
there was a
because the basis
second.
of the rules will have it. I'm not recognizing your motion.
Point
Thank you
of
very much.
information, where in the rules, point of information is an interruptible motion. Where in the rules is the chair allowed
We're
to
going to
disregard
move.
not only a
We're
motion,
going
but a
to move
second?
on when we've also violated the rules and we have to
This
go
is
to a
not a,
workshop.
I've asked you a question.
It's in.
Point of info, point
You've
of
got-
info, I've
The
asked
information
you-
is in our charter or in our backup rules to our meetings that it will
Please,
go to a half an hour.
Since we have the rules here, find in the rules where you have the ability.
I don't need to be
not
challenged.
recognize a member of this board who has not only made a motion, but had that motion seconded.
Excuse me. I had already made the motion to go to workshop.
That's not a motion. That's not
It's
the way it
based
works in
on
the
the
rules.
rules.
No, Madam Mayor,
Point
may I
of
read the
order,
rule?
point of order, point of order. I've made my decision. Thank you. We're moving on to item C. This is item C, which is going
Extraordinarily
to be.
inappropriate.
Well, you know
The charter
what?
does not give you dictatorial
Point of
powers over
order,
this
point
meeting.
of order. Thank you. This is item C, establish a transfer development right bank. Point of order. Thank you.
I read the resolution.
Item C
Okay.
What happened this evening
is
was not
establish a
appropriate.
transfer development right bank. Yes, do you want to go through?
Sure. Resolution number 23-2019 of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, to establish a transfer development right bank as more specifically described herein and providing for recording and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
We've got Tammy Panza.
taking a break.
Hi there, Tammy Panza, 116 North L. I didn't like the idea of having a transfer of development rights bank because there are times when the structure of certain properties change, and we may decide at a certain point that we want to build, let's say, a new city hall. Let's say it gets damaged, and all of a sudden our new city hall plans, they want to go higher. Are we beholden to the people that have purchased those rights to pay them exorbitant amount of money to use their own property? I don't think it's right. I think it's going to be really hard to police. So I would just say, let's not do this. Thank you.
Thank you. William, can you address that, Ms. Panza's comments?
Well, the bank is coming from William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. We have not banked all the excess rights from the sites that are there. There's only portions of them. So if you wanted to, let's say the City Hall was destroyed, you wanted to build another one, you could build one about 25% to 30% bigger than the existing one and still be within the rights that are actually established. They're all coming from the public zoning district. So if we felt that the public zoning district could be justified to have more development rights, we could change our comp plan and allow more development rights on the public, which automatically would give you more ability to develop on those sites than we have presently. So there are a number of avenues to deal with the issue that she raised.
Any other public comment cards?
No, Madam Mayor.
Seeing there are none, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Robinson.
Well, I
Go
just,
ahead.
I pulled it because I had a question on whether we could limit or how we're going to collect taxes if the development rights are purchased by a nonprofit.
We have been discussing a payment in lieu of taxes program for a while, that when a nonprofit does decide to develop in the city, they would pay the city's pro rata share of the property taxes. Keep in mind too that the transfer development right program is only effective once you have exhausted all the ability to develop under the plan development, urban plan development, or mixed plan development. So I don't know of a situation where a nonprofit would come in. I may could think of one later, and I'll get back to you. They would exhaust all those development rights because we're talking the TDR transfer development right program allows for buying additional density, additional height, and additional FAR, floor area ratio. So I don't think it would be outside the purview of the board, since all those scenarios come before the city commission to be approved, that you could stipulate as part of the development approval for such a project, even if it were a nonprofit, that the payment in lieu of taxes would be a requirement. I can get with the city attorney's office to see if that's appropriate, and we could amend, likely when we bring some land development regulation changes to you, that for nonprofits seeking a plan development or urban plan development or mixed use plan development approval, that they would be required under that scenario of TDRs or buying them, they would have to do the payment in lieu of taxes. And we'll get back to you on whether how we legally could frame that.
So any vote tonight doesn't affect the wording for the...
This is just establishing the bank. The process by which we utilize them is put in the comprehensive plan. I also know that, please note that both in the staff report and in the backup, you will be asked to evaluate the value of those transfer development rights on an annualized basis as part of the fee and schedule of fees and charges. So we can look and see how it goes the first year. And as development pressures come one way or the other, we can decide whether or not we want to change up or down the value of those transfer development rights.
And that was my other question is are we competitive with other TDRs in other cities?
We have ours are unique in the sense that they are not market driven, because most cities, and Commissioner Hardy's brought this up, are private development rights put on basically a market, and the market drives how much they're worth. We have set a fixed value that both is a competitive number, but also one that will hopefully stimulate interest in utilizing them so they're not so expensive they can't be utilized.
I don't want to be the cheapest guy in town.
I don't think we are.
Well, and in fact, I'd like to be able to, I'd like it in the structure to increase, not substantially, but increase each year, letting the developers know that if you don't do it this year, it's only going to cost more next year.
I would recommend that we look at that as part of the fee and charge discussion for FY21's budget, because we're not going to have a very long window, because the time that a developer is now, we have been promoting this program. By the time they are able to put together a pro forma, find a site, put together all the information, it's highly unlikely anyone's going to get a project in by the end of this fiscal year. I mean, end of next fiscal year, because we're already almost at the end of this one. So let's see how it goes over the next 9 months or so. And then part of the budget discussion for next year, for 21, we can discuss putting in an escalator as part of the fee schedule.
So it will be a fact that it will be discussed next year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I agree with you, Commissioner Robinson.
That's it for me.
Commissioner Robinson?
I thank you.
I agree.
Sure.
Good. We're all in this together.
There you go.
And I thank you, William, for being creative and bringing this forward.
Oh, you're welcome.
And if I could thank the city manager for his leadership in agenda item, which, I got cut off on. And Commissioner Maxwell was almost there, and damn, we sort of drifted.
Okay, we're moving on to Solar Max, which is, I'm sorry, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those
Voting on
opposed?
motions now?
Motion carries with, are you gonna vote on that last item?
So we're now allowed to vote on motions in seconds?
Point of order. Would you like to vote on this item?
Aye.
There you go. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item H was the item pulled off by Commissioner Robinson, purchase order with Solamax LED. You pulled this one off, so I just wanted to double check one.
Just to affirm that the lighting is going to be within the dark sky.
Oh, I'm sorry.
guidelines.
We just needed a vote in a second. Sorry. Excuse me. I got
Oh,
distracted.
I'm sorry.
I just need a vote, a motion to.
So moved.
So moved. And a second?
Second.
There you go. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue, Commissioner
Just,
Robinson.
I just briefly, just that all the lighting is going to be within the dark sky limitations.
Short answer, yes.
Good.
This was initially kind of headlined by the electric utility, and it was just, by the way, Jamie Brown, Public Services Director, for the
Thank
record.
you.
It was just recently turned over to Public Services. Paul Nicholas in the electric utility, who dealt with Siemens and the whole other lighting changeover in the city. He's the one who actually did the specs and everything for this as well. So
And
unfortunately, I
they're
don't
not
have all of the technical data if that's what you're looking for, but it will match what we currently have.
Thank you. It's, energy saving is great.
Okay. Richard Stowe?
Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. I just wanted, as Jamie said, he doesn't have the facts, the actual technical facts in front of him. The city did a contract with Siemens in which they set 2,700 K as the
Temperature.
color temperature for all the streetlights, both municipal and state. I want to be sure that that 2,700 K is the level that is adopted for this Solar Max contract. And you don't know whether it's 2,700 K, is that correct?
That is correct. 2,700K is what was selected for the Siemens project. And as I mentioned, Paul Nicholas, the same person who put together all the specs for that, is the same person who did the specs for this particular grant.
Okay, because there was more recently a parking lot installation, LED parking lot installation at the golf course, which is, we took a light meter out there and it's like around over 4,000 K. They're much whiter lights. You can see the Siemens contract lighting on 7th Avenue North and compare that to the golf course lights. So that's why I just want to be sure we don't have that kind of inconsistency.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got a card from Christopher McVoy. Lake Worth has an honorable history of following Dark Skies International recommendations regarding color temperature of outdoor lighting. Please make sure that any purchases are color temperature 2,700 K or less, and that they are shielded upward against upward glare. Thank you. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. in the electric utility, let's see. New business, item D, ordinance number 2019-7, reconstituting the Electric Utility Advisory Board.
Motion to approve with the following amendments.
Okay?
First amendment, membership should be 7
Oh,
members.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
She has to read it first? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Ordinance number 2019-07 of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, repealing and replacing Article 20 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances to reconstitute the city's Electric Utility Advisory Board and providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
Motion to approve with the following amendments. Section 2-236, subsection A, says the Electric Utility Advisory Board shall consist of 5 uncompensated volunteer members. That represents a reduction from its current membership from 7 to 5. I would like to amend 5 to 7 so that the membership of the board is not reduced in any way. The other thing is, we had some discussion in the previous meeting about how often the board should meet. Maybe not monthly, maybe quarterly. I think in between would be better, so I would like to amend. Oh my gosh, I have to find the section here. Where's the section that talks about the quarterly meetings? Is that on the back? I'd like to amend it so that they meet every second month, basically. I think, if 12 meetings is too much for staff to be able to handle, okay, but I think 4 is too little for a board that's been a very constructive board throughout its history. They would meet, for example, less often than the Finance Advisory Board. I think they should be meeting at least every other month. So those are my 2 amendments, and that's the motion that I've made.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm trying to think back to where we stood the last conversation. I thought I was like one of the only people that wanted to keep the Electric Utility Advisory Board last time. We're trying to limit it to whenever just on call, and I remember being, I think, the only person who wanted to. One other person maybe was. Yeah.
Instead of quarterly.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you for coming around. Public comment cards, Roger St. Martin, followed by Peggy Fisher.
Just to clarify, how many times a year was it?
Every other month.
6.
6 times. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Roger St. Martin, 3760 Kenyon Road, Village of Palm Springs. I am the representative from Palm Springs on the Electrical Utility Advisory Board, and I had originally selected to oppose it because it said 5 members, and I figured where are the other 2 going to disappear to? But now that's been settled. But since I'm here, your appearance with the mayor, as you mentioned, you were going to have 2 subjects. One, the solar farm, which we're very proud of. The other was the ocean generating project. It doesn't exist. That was abandoned months ago. We expected to get a grant through Florida Atlantic, and it didn't come through. So there's nothing happening out there in the water. How can you speak on something that doesn't exist?
It's about this item.
Yeah, we're just talking about the UAB meeting. We don't go back and forth when you talk. We'll chat afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. Peggy Fisher, followed by a card by Chris McFoy.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. There were at least 2 other commissioners who wanted to keep the Electric Utility Board when the previous discussion item came up about reconstituting it, and that was Commissioner Omari and Commissioner Robinson. Although I have heard Commissioner Amoroso is very in favor of it, I think there was a disconnect between what you all wanted as the elected officials and what staff wanted. So that's not for the board to figure out, that's for you all to figure out. The board hadn't met monthly since last summer. So there wasn't a lot of concern about it. And I will say I was on the board since its beginning in 2012, and at 6 o'clock tonight, I resigned for that board, and I will not volunteer for that board because there isn't any real desire to have that board by staff. Now, you all can sit up there and look at me in your eyes, but there isn't. And, you know, I did a lot of good work. I think other members who had been on there from the beginning had done a lot of good work until we sort of became well, we really don't want them, so we're really going to just play around with this. We're going to let all their terms expire in July. We're not going to accept their applications. We're not going to bring it forward. My application was in July of last year. And at the last meeting was when you reappointed me. Although when I was asked if I wanted to be reappointed, nothing was said about this proposed amendment. That's that's sort of pulling the rug out, isn't it? So I don't think you all really want this board unless you want just a board that the staff can say, we took it to them and they rubber stamped, they agreed with what we proposed, and here it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McVoy's card reads, our electric utility is a unique asset as well as a point of concern for all residents and businesses. It always gives us potential to put Lake Worth on the environmental map with leading-edge policies. For all these reasons, please vote to keep the EUAB strong and democratic. 7 members, 12 meetings. Thank you. Justin Hoysrat, followed by Tammy Panza.
Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Justin Hoysrad, and I live in the city of West Palm Beach, and I'm here today representing as a principal of a solar energy contracting business. And that business is the contracting of installing solar panels on businesses and homes, along with advanced battery technology. And this city has a unique presence with the Electric Utility Advisory Board, and some of the things that we discussed here tonight, along with the previous meetings, considering Tallahassee has just allocated billions into environmental restoration of the Everglades, lots and lots of money, billions in economic development here in the state of Florida. There's a clear, transparent process that customers of Florida Power and Light, Duke Energy, and other municipal utilities have at interconnecting with that utility up to 2 megawatts and then beyond with non-standardized contracts. At previous meetings, we discussed a new interconnection agreement that I think may or may not have, and in my opinion may, created a little bit more roadblocks than necessary. And I believe that the Electric Utility Advisory Board would have been a great place to bring that interconnection and have a fair public process where individuals like myself and other stakeholders, even members of the community, could have interjected and expressed opinions, even experts. I see that as an extreme challenge for this city because that puts more opportunity in places just across the street, essentially, where people who want to come to Florida, open businesses, contract and develop economic opportunities here can see clearer and purchase energy cheaper from a publicly traded or investor-owned utility nearby rather than developing here in this city. I believe that the Electric Utility Advisory Board is an instrumental board that provides clear public process for this community and economic development. So I fully support the motion to approve this.
Thank you. Tammy Panza, followed by Richard Stowe.
Hi there. Tammy Panza, 116 North Allen. Sorry, I'm monopolizing the podium today. I again appreciate the Electric Utility Advisory Board and all they do, and I believe part of the previous description was that they facilitate the citizen understanding of what's going on with the utility. And that's been prohibited, really. They're not allowed to discuss decisions that have been made on the EUAB. They've been told not to talk. I would like to make sure that the citizen involvement and the utilities, electric utility advisory boards job description, so to speak, includes and it's not excluded that the citizen involvement and citizen understanding is addressed. So if you have nothing for them to do, and frankly, we do have a lot of things for them to do, so I'm not sure why we're adjusting the description, decreasing their job, decreasing their meeting, making it so that only the utility advisor can call the meetings and reducing the membership. We have a lot to talk about. There was a recent article in the newspaper about how the city forgot that it had made some decisions about the solar. If we had been meeting regularly with the EUAB and discussing things, we probably wouldn't have forgotten that, because we would have had 7 people eminently qualified talking about it and bringing it to the attention. That's what they're there for. The commission has a proclivity for ignoring what the advisory boards direct, or maybe scheduling the meetings before they have a chance to provide proper input. So I would like to make sure that the citizen involvement and making sure that the populace understands what is going on is a job for the Utility Advisory Board. We do keep 7 members because, frankly, we have things on that are just put through on consent agendas that are, we spend millions of dollars of that, and then we have a workshop where we talk about 3 inches in bush height for 3 hours. So that shouldn't happen.
Thank you. Mr. Stowe?
Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. Well, I do approve the motion to retain the 7-member board. I say that as someone who's served on the tree board since 2013 and for over 5.5 years as chair. Working with 5 or less members was challenging in terms of the activities that we were engaged to do in terms of advising the commission and educating the public on tree, native trees, and proper pruning. So that's a good thing. The motion that has been made and seconded, however, is creating a 50% drop in the number of meetings. So you're cutting the meetings in half. I'm not a purist, so I'm not saying you have to meet like 12 months out of the year, but maybe can we like compromise it a little bit and maybe like go to 8? That would be like 33% drop. I think this utility is an extremely important asset to our city, and the direction it takes is important. So I'm not sure that dropping it to 50% of what we have now is advisable. And then finally, I hope the city commission directs the director to be fully engaged with the board in the future, because that's invaluable in terms of how a board operates when you have the staff expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Commissioner Hardy?
I would like to make a cleanup motion. So if you look at section 2-237, subsection C, it says a minimum of 3 board members will constitute a quorum. If this body votes to keep the membership at 7, you would have a quorum with less than a majority of the board members. So to clean that up, I'd like to amend my motion to amend section 2-237 subsection C to say a minimum of 4 board members will constitute a quorum. Is there a second on that?
You have to just, can you, you want to say, you have to rescind your first motion, and the second has to rescind, and then you can make the new motion.
No, I can amend my original motion.
He can, and also.
But you have to get a second.
Can we go back
The
to
same
your?
second.
Go ahead and do that, and I want to go back to the other.
Okay. So who was the second on the motion, City Clerk?
Commissioner Robinson.
Commissioner Robinson.
Okay. Would you?
He doesn't have to withdraw his second.
I'm asking him to approve your revised motion, your amended motion.
It's a superseding or a subsidiary motion.
I think what she's asking is that just to move it along, can we just get him to agree to?
Agreed.
Right, and that will clarify it.
Correct.
But I have a question on the second part of your motion.
Sure.
Did you say 6 times a year or every other month? There's a difference.
Well, okay. So every other month is more specific, and it implies 6 months, six times a year.
Yeah, but they can meet 3 times in a month. I mean, if you say 6 times a year, you're not saying.
If I say once every other month.
Right, that's what I'm
Okay.
asking.
So, the motion will say that the membership shall be 7 members, not 5. That they shall meet once every other month, and that a minimum of 4 board members will constitute a quorum for the board.
And the only question I have for you is that, as Ms. Fisher said, they haven't been meeting in several months, right? Maybe there's items that come before that need continuous meeting. You know, I mean, we've always used it in the past as before. You know, to give some history to the story of this, when the EUAB was first created, you know, we were here to create it to be a sounding board for people in the community to be able to offer their input on this and to start explaining the electric utility. When this whole thing that people mentioned about solar happened, part of the reason the EUAB was created was because of stuff that we were not being given any information from our utility director at the time about anything that was going on in the electric utility. We never had an electric utility section on our agendas. We didn't talk about anything. And anytime we asked, we were given whatever story the utility director du jour was giving us at that point. And we could not, as a commission, get involved in any way, shape, or form with them. Occasionally an item would come before us and we'd get to vote on it. We've given no backup information on it. And we were constantly told, you need to approve this because it's going to be expired, or this is going to I mean, this is literally what happened. And then, of course, we had a changeover and transition, but we had, you know, we started to say no, and the EUAB came in. It was a really important part because they were starting to, you know, help us to examine and look at the things and bring them to us and explain in layman's terms and get everybody involved in a conversation. And it was really, really good. And that's why I've been supportive of EUAB staying on, because it's been really, really good. There's always personalities and things that change, and we've had different directors, but I want them to be there to offer that sounding board to the community, to give us the ability to speak about what's going on in their communities and their neighbors, and also to make sure that it's a very, you know, a very open process. And I've appreciated all the work, even if they don't appreciate mine. I've appreciated all of their hard work and energy and time that they've spent on this. But I'm okay with the switching. I don't know if pinpointing it to every other month, if we need them more on certain issues, can they meet more, or can they only meet? I don't want to restrict the amount that they can meet them.
Well, Madam Mayor, the only reason why I said every other month was because there seemed to be a consensus at the last meeting that this body wanted to go in the direction, at least, that staff recommended, which was that the board shouldn't meet every month. So based on that idea, which was what most people felt the last meeting, everybody was saying, well, we don't want them to meet every month. But I felt that meeting every 3 months was too far and too few in between. So I thought the compromise would be in between every 3 months and every month. So if this board wants it to happen, we can just have them continue to meet every month. I don't have a problem with that at all. That to me is actually preferable. The other thing is, and I'll echo Ms. Fisher's comments, who's a member of the board and has been for a long time. Even though we've been considering making changes to this board and to the way that it operates, there has been an ordinance in place for the way that this board should operate. And the ordinance says the board shall meet every month. And the board has not met every month. And I have communicated to the city manager and expressed my concern with the fact that the board has not been meeting every month as per the ordinance.
And so that's frustrating with me. The other thing I'll say is I don't know how this got in our laps. I know how it got in our laps. I'm not really feeling it. I understand that there is a person who does a wonderful job at the electric utility being the director. I understand that this person sometimes feels that having to go to this board every month is a bit much, but we don't change ordinances for one person. This person is one of many people to have directed this utility. And one day, this person won't be here. And we have to enact ordinances for our institutions. And I feel that we are enacting this ordinances and changing the public engagement process to suit one person's feelings and disposition. And I don't want to see us go one step further in this direction after this evening. Those will be my so I wonder, do my board members feel that it's okay for the Electric Utility Advisory Board to meet every month? If so, I'd like to see them meet every month.
Well, may I just say something for a second? What I was trying to get at is the fact that the initial call that you had for 6 times a month, can we say 6 times or more? Can we just say, I mean, so.
As needed. As needed.
6 times or more, meaning that, so that if there are more times that they're needed to get together, then they could be more than that. Meet every other month or 6, there's a way to phrase it, so that if additional meetings are needed, that they can be called.
Well, it says right now that utility advisory board, they can have meetings that are called by the utility director or by the commission.
Or the commission on policy issues. You can have that happen.
How?
Go ahead.
How would what process exists for the commission to call such a meeting?
You have a meeting, Madam Mayor,
Please.
once a month that we didn't have for as long as the utility's been in existence until recently. As part of our efforts to try to push this information out in the public, the commission meets as the governing board in a separate meeting each month. At that meeting, it's all electric all the time. You've got, and this group has never been as informed about the electric utility. And I want to take exception with the comments of Commissioner Hardy about Ed Liberty. This is not being tailored to an employee, especially Mr. Liberty, whose professionalism and contributions to this organization are unquestionable by anyone in this city and anyone on this dais.
I don't question his professionalism.
Let me finish.
One at a time, please.
This pile-on that's occurring right now with your professional staff, be careful. We're trying to balance the capabilities and the resources of what you have here in this city. And the electric utility, above all, needs a lot of fixing and a lot of help. And we were trying, if we'll recall, to move the issues and the information and the transparency of this part of our organization, this important business that we have of the utility, by putting y'all as a board of directors. Everyone's making it sound like we're trying to hide more. There's been more information that's been pushed out in the public and talked about in this room before this body since Ed's been here than ever in all the years when the Electric Utility Board was the sole reliant group. And I'm not trying to diminish what they did. They were given a role. They were created when we came out of FMPA because this city wanted to sell its electric utility. And that seems to be a forgotten memory. That group stood up and played an important role. It did. But we have moved on and changed. Institutions changed. Y'all created the UAB. You can morph it. You can adapt it to where it functions better. We were moving in this direction because we thought we had answered the question of how to get the public and the transparency more better handled by having you sit at this board. And y'all have rejected that idea. And that's your prerogative. Y'all govern. But don't turn this into an us and them thing. And please don't impugn Mr. Liberty's character that somehow this is being tailored around him, because it is not.
I just want to clarify one thing that, and it goes for all boards at this point, and looking at Mr. Stowe here when you're talking about the tree board. What is it? We're not talking about, quasi-judicial boards like planning and zoning, right? Or historic resources preservation. when you're dealing with all the other boards, which would be EUAB, they're not quasi-judicial, right? So what gives, and what precedent are we setting as a commission to say that, okay, we must listen to everything that the EUAB says, but have we listened to everything that the FAB board said? Have we listened to everything that the tree board said? Have we listened to, I'm saying we're kind of walking and teetering on a strange line here when it comes to boards. Because if you give one board more authority than another board that's not a quasi-judicial board, why does one board get more? Why aren't we?
All boards aren't created equal.
I'm saying all boards apparently aren't created equal here.
They serve different functions.
I'm just trying to say.
And you as the governing board determine what that role is, and you define it, and you can change it, and that's your prerogative. This board, though, and this function, the electric utility is mighty important to this city.
And that's why it's good to have these conversations and to have them have the meetings and vet certain information.
And you've been very clear. You want to see the EUAB continue. You want to see it perform a role where it vets policy discussions. We have the whole solar net metering thing that we would love to get back before them to get their opinions so that we can bring that issue forward to you. That's kind of what we're waiting on in the ethics opinion, which we just got and all of you got copies of, about who can discuss it on the board or not. So as a professional staff, we'll circle back around. We'll do whatever you say. But please put it in the context of good governance and process and transparency. But it's not one or the other. And we're definitely not the bad guys here trying to hide information. We've been over backwards to create more information about what's going on in the electric utility than has ever happened before.
And the quarterly conversation came last time because I was trying to balance between none and some, and the quarterly was that. If we can do 6 or more, I'm good with that. I'm being called by the commissioner. I'm good with that.
It's quality of meetings is our point as a staff.
For them to discuss.
To have meetings, just to have meetings, has killed a lot of boards that don't exist anymore.
Correct.
Because and they need to feel a sense of purpose too. You've heard several people express, long-time people who've devoted a lot to this city, don't feel like they're contributing. And we need to rectify that. That's something we need to correct on our side of the equation.
Was there a minimum of 6? At least gives us the opportunity, and if there's more things that we need to bring to the board, or we can address the board, or staff needs to bring them.
If you just amend section 2-237 subsection B to say that the utility advisory board shall meet once every other month, then that still leaves the second sentence in this subsection, which is alternatively, additional meetings of the electric utility advisory board may be called by the electric utility director or as directed by the city commission at the public meeting. That said, I'm not confident in being the conversation we just had about the process of getting things on the agenda, and right, I don't know what the process is for this body to call an additional utility board meeting, right? And so that's my concern. But if we can codify such a process, then I would be okay with simply omitting the first sentence of this section and subsection to say shall meet once every other month, because that still preserves the ability for them to meet. The other thing is I didn't impugn Ed Liberty's integrity. I didn't impugn his professionalism. As a matter of fact, I think I complimented his professionalism and his ability to get things done in the city. But what I do know, based on our own one-on-one conversations that happened in that room back there, is that the EUAB having to go to them every month for things that he might consider to be too detailed or too trivial, he doesn't like it. And that in response to that, we should perhaps change the way that this thing works. And so the idea that the fact that this thing is in front of us because a staff member doesn't like the way things are going, and he feels that his time could be better used, and that his staff members' time could be better used by meeting less frequently and by having fewer members on the board. And so that's something that I've been told, not on this dais, but in this building. And anyone who's deeply involved, there are several members of the EUAB here, one of which hasn't spoken, but that's what they all know to be true. I would defy any one of these members to say that that's not what they believe. And that's, even if that's the way that they've been made to feel. Right? So just to set that straight, I like it. I like the job he does for the city, but there has to be a commitment to be overseen by members of the public. This is not a private company. This is a city-owned utility.
Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to weigh in a little bit. So, I've heard a lot of things that aren't necessarily right. And I just want to make sure that the UAB board, we appreciate you. We actually put you in place. However, quite often there are issues that come before now this board sitting as a utility governing body that is our emergencies. We had things blow up. Especially during times of storm. I think everything should come in front of you. However, it doesn't always work like that. And I've also heard from other board members that are not here tonight that don't want to come to a meeting just to have a meeting. They want to make sure that when they come to a meeting, you're all volunteers, you're all business professionals, that you're coming here to do a job. So we need to make sure as we move forward to call a meeting and to have a meeting every 2 months just to have a meeting, we need to make sure that they're meeting for issues, and that needs to come from this board, this governing body as a utility. We need to prioritize, and as we're moving forward, there's certain issues that we know will be coming down, like a tie line and things, and we need to be very specific, and I said that of all boards, even the tree board. We need to be very specific in that we pick 1, 2, 3 things to move forward with every board to work on. We know the tie line is one of them. We need to have that conversation in our board meeting up here and to make those decisions that we move forward. And then also we need to remind that the board members are governed by sunshine. We have, opinions by the Commission on Ethics tonight that could have been a lot worse. We've heard, well, their meeting was shut down and they, it was tabled, so to speak, for certain reasons to actually cover our board members that could have gotten into trouble if they continue to have conversations because of things they're talking. Quite often I see people take things to social media that once you take it to social media, it becomes another animal. Once you block me from social media, it's still a gray area, but you've blocked me from social media, which is a public, especially when you're speaking about city things. So we just have to be careful. When we're in the public, we're very careful. We want the same of you, our board members, and we need to make sure that, especially if your jobs cross over into something you might be making a decision, we can't do that, neither can our board members. So we just need to make sure that everybody knows exactly what the rules and regulations are, because we want to not only govern and represent all the people, but our board members. You're volunteers. We thank you for your service, but we need to make sure at the end of the day that sunshine is we're looked into sunshine, and maybe we need to circle back around with some new sunshine conversations, because we do it every year. Every 2 years in certain forms with the Florida League of Cities, the Palm Beach County League of Cities. So maybe we need to do that more often just to remind, and sometimes our board members change. So, okay, thank you.
We've got a motion on the floor that was been amended 3 times. Do we have that in the record? Do we have a second on the amended motion? Do we have I don't believe we have a second on the amended
I
motion.
think we should,
We have an
especially on that
agreement.
B section, let's just repeat what the consensus is. I'm not sure. And I want to also add one little, I don't see this referenced here. Who are we saying determines whether or not there are no pending policy decisions for the board's consideration? Is it the chairperson? Because, so this is how I have it right now with my little part added. Under B, the meetings of the Electric Utility Advisory Board shall be every other month unless the chairperson determines there are no pending policy decisions for the board's consideration. Additional meetings of the board may be called by the electric utility director or as directed by the city commission at a public meeting.
That's what it says, yes.
I don't have chairperson in that.
I just added that.
Oh, you just added that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just added that because somebody has to cancel the meeting, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be staff or the chairperson. Right, I think, right.
I don't think it should be a staff member.
That's why I added chairperson.
As a matter of fact, why don't we just strike that from because I don't know who I would be comfortable with making that decision at all. I don't know that there's a person or a group of people that I would feel okay just canceling that meeting.
Somebody has to make it.
If it's the chair, then the chair can just decide not to have a meeting. Like, you couldn't even remove the chair if the chair decides that there's no policy business, right?
I think we already ran into that.
ran into that.
With the finance advisory board,
Then
didn't
that
we?
means they have to have the meetings.
Yeah.
Well,
Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
generally speaking, aren't the chairs of the respective advisory boards responsible for canceling meetings?
No.
They
There's
are
a staff
according to the
liaison.
charter.
If there's no consensus. or no-
What?
Somebody has to be responsible.
But the ordinance says the ordinance that currently governs the utility advisory board says that they shall meet on a monthly basis. There's if there's not a policy, issue. That's a gray area. I don't want to go into.
No, it's not true. I'm sorry. Section 2-239 says the board shall meet at least once a month. The chair shall have the power to schedule special meetings or cancel regularly scheduled meetings as the workload of the board requires.
That's the current ordinance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the current. So the chair has the responsibility in the current ordinance. What it says.
But that's not what happened with the finance advisory board. We better look at these rules very carefully, or else you're going to have the same situation happening here.
But that's
happened
only,
with the finance
but
advisory
that's
board.
only under the
That's only
electric
under
utility board. That section. So I don't know what the financial advisory board rules state.
So you better check that too.
Okay. So you just we don't need to have any more ambiguities. So I really just wanted to clear that up.
Vice Mayor?
I just think that we need to look at this a little bit more. And again, you have a director that leads the meetings in all these board, and the director, again, the director, whether it's he or she is being directed by us to cancel a meeting or to add a meeting because there's something else we need to look at. You're putting a lot on a chair. And again, a chair is a volunteer. I'm not going to vote for this tonight because I think it needs to be cleaned up. And like the mayor said, we need to clean up. And we said, a year ago, we need to look at all the boards and make sure that we clean up the conversation based on what happened last time on one of our boards. And that also we give clear direction, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 10 items for each board to move forward with. We never had that conversation.
I think I understand and appreciate that, and I wasn't trying to goad you when I said that, but I think we need to just make sure that this board stays established because it's important, and we can go in and workshop some of those other items. I don't want to let this pass.
It hasn't been, I'm sorry,
Yes.
did we do away with this board?
Well, basically, we're saying they're going to meet. They're not meeting at all right now, and they haven't met.
But we
haven't ratified all the. I saw something today about the ratification of members.
Okay, so
or whatever. So we need to get this board functioning back again quickly.
Okay, so my question to the attorney.
Yes.
Whether the board members re-upped or not, they work at our leisure. So therefore, until we remove one, they are still sitting from what our ordinance says.
Correct, unless they resign.
Correct.
Right,
And
resign.
we had one that resigned tonight.
She can rescind if she wants.
But we also did not dissolve this board. We
That's
just
correct.
have not had any meetings because
If I could, Madam Mayor, the last meeting, as
I would like the city manager to do this, and then I'd like to wrap this up because we're past the time.
we were waiting
In
for
5
the
minutes.
Commission on Ethics to issue their conflict of interest ruling, which they did. So I would expect that staff will be calling a meeting so that we can move on with the net metering discussion.
So we still have a board, we still have
Yes.
everything that governs it, we still have a 7 body, and they still meet monthly as needed.
Yes.
So-
And they can be, and their meetings can be canceled now.
Correct. So we have what we need.
Point of information? May I ask the clerk to read the motion that she has on the record?
Oh, Lord. Motion to approve with the following amendments. First amendment is section, and I'm sorry, I didn't get a 2-236, I
Yep.
think. 5 members. He wants to change back to 7 members.
Right.
Second, how often the board meets, every second month, less often than the FAB. These are just my notes. I'll have to go back and listen to it. I'm sorry. Then you asked if every other month, 6 times a year. Miss Ryan asked if it was 6 times a year, and you said once every other month with 7 members, 4 members constituting a quorum.
But never at dusk. No, sorry.
So,
Both of them won't.
so it's basically as written with 3 changes. Not 5 members, but 7.
7 members.
Okay. Not meeting quarterly, but every other month.
Yes.
Unless the chair decides that there are no pending policy decisions for the board's consideration.
Okay.
That was my extra part, so you're adding that?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
adding that. And so that last bit is from section 2-237 subsection B, and this last part is from section 2-237 subsection C, to amend it to say that a minimum of 4 board members shall constitute a quorum for the board.
Okay, and the chair decides that
That there are no policy
no
issues.
policy issues.
Okay.
And there's the minimum of 4 members to constitute a quorum.
Yes. Now, as it stands, the chair can cancel a meeting. That's what you're telling me?
Yes, that's,
Okay.
if you add that part.
So that's the way it's been, that the chair has always had the ability to cancel a meeting.
Correct.
So that putting this policy here does not take away from the what's already the case with the board. Right now, the chair can cancel a meeting. In the future, the chair can cancel a meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm okay with that. If that's the way that the board has always operated, as far as the chair being able to decide if they don't meet, then I'm okay with that. So that's the motion, and is there a second for that?
I have to call for that.
Well, okay, yeah, sorry.
Do I have a second? Wait, is that, how do you rephrase that? Because the motion's been made so many times. Does he have to rescind the
Commissioner-
motion and issue the motion new?
Commissioner Robinson just agreed to that the second time, so he
Second
would
time.
have to
Okay,
agree
there
to
we
it
go.
again.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
No, he'd have to agree to it again.
Oh, right. He did not agree the third time.
That's right. He agreed the second time. If
What?
he agrees
And
the
if he
third
doesn't
time.
agree, then
There's no.
you don't have, the motion will die.
Yes, please. I would like a member of the Utility Advisory Board to please come up and speak on this issue. I will take a mayor's privilege. It seems to be.
The chair of our board never canceled the meetings. It was we were notified from the utility director's office. So it was the utility director who notified us that we were going to have a meeting or we were not going to have a meeting. Our chair never canceled the meetings.
Thank you for clarifying. So with the motion and the second on the floor.
No, there is no second.
Well, I just
He has
want
to make
to
a
understand that the chairman is going to have the ability to cancel the meeting.
Or keep the meeting.
Or keep the meeting, and that will be based on a quorum and the agenda. They'll self-police each other, and we can self-police the chairman if there's a problem. We can,
Wrap
hopefully.
up. 2 minutes, guys.
Hopefully, we'll be able to fix the chairman if there's a problem. So I am seconding the motion.
Okay.
Yes.
Second motion. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay.
City Attorney, do you have a city manager? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second?
I'll make
Second?
these changes.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.
I did get shut off. Huh? I did not.